Truckers, Part 23. Masklin looked carefully at the rubbish. It was just possible to imagine someone had been lying there, watching. He rummaged among it and found a small sandwich wrapper. He took the coat back out with him. There didn't seem to be much else to do. A dozen gnomes were waiting anxiously on the all-soaked floor under the engine. Masklin held out the coat and shrugged. "No sign," he said. "He's been there, but he's not there now." "What could have happened to him?" said one of the older gnomes. Someone behind him said darkly, "Perhaps the rain squashed him, or he was blown away by the fierce wind." "That's right," said one of the others. "There could be dreadful things outside." "No," said Masklin. "I mean, there are dreadful things." "Ah," said the other gnomes, nodding. "But not like that. He should have been perfectly all right if he stayed in the lorry. I told him not to go exploring." He was aware of a sudden silence. The gnomes weren't looking at him, but past him, at something behind him. The Duke de Haberdashery was standing there with some of his soldiers. He stared woodenly at Masklin and then held out his hands without saying a word. Masklin gave him the coat. The Duke turned it over and over, staring at it. The silence stretched out thinner and thinner until it almost hummed. "I forbade him to go," said the Duke softly. "I told him it would be dangerous. You know, that was foolish of me. It just made him more determined." He looked back up at Masklin. "Well," he said. Said Masklin. "Is my son still alive?" He could be. There's no reason why not." The Duke nodded vaguely. This is it, thought Masklin. It's all going to end here. The Duke stared up at the lorry and then looked round at his guards. "And these things go outside, do they?" he said. "Oh, yes, all the time," said Masklin. The Duke made an odd noise in the back of his throat. "There is nothing outside," he said. "I know this, but my son knew differently." "You think we should go out? Will I see my son then?" Masklin looked into the old man's eyes. They were like two eggs that weren't quite cooked yet, and he thought about the size of everything outside and the size of a gnome, and then he thought, a leader should know all about truth and honesty and when to see the difference. Honestly, the chance of finding Angela out there is greater than the whole store taking wings and flying. But the truth is that it's possible, he said, and felt terrible. But it was possible. "Very well," said the Duke, his expression unchanged. "What do you need?" "What?" said Masklin, his mouth dropping open. "I said, what do you need to make the lorry go outside?" said the Duke. Masklin floundered. "Well, at the moment, I suppose we need people." "How many?" snapped the Duke. Masklin's mind raced. 50? he ventured. "You shall have them." "But," Masklin began. The Duke's expression changed now. He no longer looked totally lost and alone. Now he looked his usual angry self. "Succeed," he hissed, and spun on his heel and stalked off. That evening, 50 Haberdashery turned up, gawping at the garage and acting generally bewildered. Gerda protested, but Masklin put all those who looked even vaguely capable onto the reading scheme. "There's too many," said Gerda, "and they're common soldiers for Arnold Brothers established 1905's sake." "I expected him to say 50 was too many and beat me down to 20 or so," said Masklin. "But I think we will need them all, soon." The reading programme wasn't going the way he expected. There were useful things in the books, it was true, but it was a hard job to find them among all the strange stuff. Like the girl in the rabbit hole. It was Vinto who came up with that one. He said, "And she fell down into this hole, and there was a white rabbit and a watch. I know about rabbits, and then she found this little bottle of stuff that made her big. I mean, really huge. And then she found some more stuff which made her really small. He'd said it breathlessly, his face glowing with enthusiasm. So, all we need to do is, we need just to find some more of the big stuff, and then one of us can get big and drive the lorry. Masklin didn't dare ignore it. If just one gnome could be made the size of a human, it would be easy. He told himself that dozens of times. It had to be worth the effort. So, they'd spent nearly all the night searching the store for any bottles labelled "Drink Me." Either the store didn't have it, and Gerda wasn't prepared to accept that because the store had everything under one roof, or it just wasn't real. There seemed to be lots of things in books that weren't real. It was hard to see why Arnold Brothers established 1905 had put so many unreal things in books. So the faithful can tell the difference, Gerda had said. Masklin had taken one book himself. It just fitted his box. It was called A Child's Guide to the Stars, and most of it was pictures of the sky at night. He knew that was real. He liked to look at it when he had had too much to think about. He looked at it now. They had names, like Sirius and Regal, or Wolf 359, or Ross 154. He tried a few on the thing. "I do not know the names," it said. "I thought we came from one of them," said Masklin. "You said—" "They are different names. Currently, I cannot identify them." "What was the name of the star that gnomes came from?" said Masklin, lying back in the darkness. "It was called the sun." "But the sun's here." "All stars are called the sun by the people who live nearby. It is because they believe them to be important." Did we visit many?" "I have 94,563 registered as having been visited by gnomes." Masklin stared up at the darkness. Big numbers gave him trouble, but he could see that this number was one of the biggest. Bargains galore, he thought, and then felt embarrassed and corrected it to, "Gosh! All those suns, miles apart, and all I have to do is move one lorry." Put like that, it seemed ridiculous.